I was like, do you have your?
Little bit of rum, a whole lot of Diet Coke.
That's what she tells us. That's what she's been telling us for the past 3 years.
Look how dark it is. See, you can tell. See, if it was
But that combination is I mean, that it's 6 o'clock, either rum, if you separate that drink, either rum or Diet Coke would jack me up the rest of the night, one way or the other. So I give you props for even attempting this combination at 6 p.m. Central Time.
Well, I needed to take another one of my ADD pills, and then I was like, I'm not going to be able to sleep. Oh, this isn't going to work. And so I was like, all right, I will have the Diet Coke. That will get me up. I'll have the rum. That'll calm me down. You just
the right balance, the right notes.
I do that with chocolate and dessert sometimes. If I do this, if I eat 25 carrots, I can have that s'more sitting outside waiting for me.
Exactly.
Same thing.
Oh, okay. So let's see. People are starting to come in. Yay!
Yay!
Hello, everybody. We're amazing.
I've also seen Jenny do this combination of Diet Coke and rum at 2 p.m. So I think
so many. That's my
I would if I had alcohol at 2 p.m, I would curl up in a little ball and sleep. That's what happened. That's what happens when you don't drink enough. I get hungover, I get sleepy, all kinds of. I'm not fun like you would expect.
Oh my gosh, I just get loud or really quiet. And I tend to kind of like hide in places. Well, what's really nice about this
that'd be funny if you did that during an event. Like you just start slipping under the desk.
I mean, there have been some events where I I don't know if you've ever noticed, but I have a tendency, I never say goodbye to anybody ever. Like Kate, when you were there, I didn't say,
just have to
see you later. I just disappeared. I'm like, I gotta go.
You did. You vanished. I thought, how rude. Where'd she go?
So I get
someone warned me you do that.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like you Irish goodbye yourself, like during Zooms. Like
I absolutely do. And I can because my mom's Irish, so I'm allowed to.
But no one did it as good as Maureen Johnson when her computer just decided to nope away.
Oh my God. Yeah. In the middle of, and we're talking about murder and her book's about murder, and she's dressed up in a full, like we were doing costumes, and like she's naturally spooky, right? And dry, and she was just like, what's that? And there's and then all of a sudden it just died. The whole computer died. It just went out, and then she never contacted. I was like, is she alive? Later she texted me and she was like, oh yeah, my laptop stopped working. I was like, Maureen, we thought you died.
Yeah, I thought she fell out of went to dinner. I was worried. I even asked you, I was like, did you hear from Maureen? Like, is she okay?
Did she survive? So welcome to everyone. So we are joined today, as always, by Vicky, our event manager, who makes this all possible. And we're also joined, I'm so excited, by Kate Winkler Dawson, who wrote this amazing book. She's actually written several amazing books, including American Sherlock, which was one that we did for the Fantastic Strangelings years ago. This book, if you haven't picked it up yet, it is so good. All That Is Wicked, a Gilded Age story of murder and the race to decode the criminal mind. You might think, if you listen to, Kate has some amazing podcasts, which I listen to all of them, and you might think, oh, well, I already heard the whole story in the podcast. You have not heard the whole story on the podcast, because I kind of thought that. I was like, oh, this is going to be an easy read because I kind of know the story. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, and then what? And then what? What? And maybe that's because I have a bad memory, or maybe because I like to read more than I like, to listen. I don't know. But you absolutely need to get it. So we're going to talk about this. Spoiler alert, murders happen.
Spoiler alert, murders. Kids are unfamiliar with Kate.
Exactly. Yes. It's a romance. No, it's not. Wouldn't that be funny though? It's a really smutty romance about brain size. No, it's not. Oh, but before we do that, because I'm going to forget this because we almost did it last time. The should we do some giveaways, some advanced copy giveaways?
If you would like to, what do you have?
I have a little pile of them, but I'm not sure how many. Should we do 3, 4? I've got like.
Let's do 3.
Okay.
Let's find a piece of paper that'll write something on.
All right. Okay, so what's the best way to do it? Should I show the book and then?
I feel like there's no good way to do this.
I think you're absolutely right.
I mean, the last way we did it was as good as any. So you just said what the books were about, and then you just said go.
Oh yes, and then at the end you had to type in what book you wanted, and then whatever book that was. If you were the first person that Vicki saw, you're the person that gets it, and we'll ship it to you.
Yeah,
These are.
Well, you said okay, go do the rundown of what the books are about, and then you'll say title and then claim if that's what you want.
Yes. Okay. So this is not an art because it's already come out. So I'm going to move it over here. This
that one.
and you know what? I'm going to move this one over here because it was a really good book, but oh my God, it's so depressing. If you'd like to read a depressing book about depression, this is it.
Code.
It is very good, but it's so depressing. So I'm gonna do it. Let's do instead. Okay. You know what? These books are depressing too, but they are so good. I'm sorry, they are. Okay, so the first one is Gilded Mountain by Kate Manning. This is historical fiction. It is really good. It's about like Colorado mining. Wait, is it Colorado? It was like California. Y'all, it's been 3 months since I've read this one. It's so good though. It feels a little like Little House on the Prairie, but like way heavier. Very good. Then We Are the Light by Matthew Quick. This is the same guy that wrote Silver Linings Playbook. This book, I will pre-warn you, is about a mass shooting. So it is dark, but it is really a really good psychological kind of, it's a good book. And The Light Pirate, which I really liked. As a matter of fact, this one, I was really close to picking this one for one of the future Fantastic Strangelings. This is sort of a post-apocalyptic climate change sort of. Ooh, it's very good. So these are all, and they're arcs, and I read all of them. So you're going to see all the little bookmarks and dog ears because these are my personal copies that I went through myself. So I apologize for that. So what we're going to do is just open it up, and the first person just write what you want. We Are the Light Pirate, Gilded Mountain. They're all about light, not on purpose.
I know, this is where I get to have fun. You people, you're great. We love you. Chick is getting it to like show me the full name. There we go.
All right.
So we had the Light Pirate, Gilded Mountain.
And We Are the Light.
Yes.
I do have all sorts of other books too, but
It's
it's ridiculous. I have piles of books. I'm having such a hard time picking the December book, the November book. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about the November book. I kind of want to tell you all about it.
It's close enough.
It's close enough, right?
Yeah, it's close enough.
Okay.
They're members. You can tell them.
Right,
Oh, but first we
is...
get Rebecca Louise. We got you for Light Pirate. And then I got Rebecca Charles for Gilded Mountain and Chelsea Axel for We Are the Light. Thank you guys. I'll email you guys for.
That's great.
Awesome. So November's book is going to be White Horse, which is it's such a good book.
I already downloaded.
It's an indigenous writer writing about urban Indian horror is basically what it is, but it's very light horror, but it's not really light. It's not as scary as Mexican Gothic. It's a little, I would say Miss March. It's probably along that wine. But oh my gosh, y'all, it's so good. Oh, it's so good. Sorry, I've been really into horror lately. I promise we have some other ones that are coming that are not going to be horror, but oh, it's really good. I thought you said Lice Pirate.
I know, I'm like, I thought you said Lice Pirate. It's like, I don't think I want that book. Or maybe that one could be like a pirate themed lice service. You know how they have like lice services now that will come to your house and like do all of the stuff that your mom had to do for a kid? Like, but now someone will come and do it for you and you pay them for it. What if they did that dressed like a pirate and they were lice pirates?
I would have hired them at least 3 times in my life, let me tell you.
I was like, you had lice 3 times?
Yep.
Has Haley ever brought it home?
Huh?
Has Haley ever brought it home?
Yes, because of camp.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
camp.
it was all every single time it was camp. They'd come and I'd just be like, you're not allowed to go to horse camp anymore. Do all the horses have lice? What is going on? What is happening?
Horse camp.
Horse camp. All right. So we are going to be crafting as we're talking today about murder. So I'm making little pasties and here's the little sequins that go on them and the glue, which is super strong. It is 100% huffing glue. And this is what it says on it. It says,
like, use a respirator and like.
No, it says, it is a surprise adhesive force. This was a great adhesive. Mad fans around the world. So
where did you buy this? What is it called?
Wow.
It was just online. It's B7000.
What is this generic E6000 you bought?
I don't know, but I think I'm gonna get real high. But I think that's good because getting a little high and talking about murder, that's what
right on.
I don't know. Haley's gonna come in. You're gonna be in trouble. She's gonna be
oh, for sure. Okay. So all that is wicked. So tell us in broad strokes about, because there is so much that happens with this guy and the backstory and what it means for the future and what it means for forensics and what so can you tell us in broad strokes about Roloff?
Well, so Edward Roloff, as you had mentioned, he was the very first season of Temple More Wicked, which is one of my 3 shows. And Roloff started as a book. He did not start as a podcast. And I said, this is the kind of book I want to do. And it was basically what the podcast is. It's Edward Roloff's story as this 19th century academic genius who thinks that he has the key to unlocking the origin of human language, which would have been a really big deal in the field of linguistics in the 1800s. And he is brilliant. He has a lot of potential. He works very, very hard. He has incredible aspirations, but he's also a terrible person who is a killer. And he kills 4 members of his own family and then creates this criminal ring of burglars specifically to fund his research while he lived in New York City. And so this was a great story, just like a rip-roaring story for me. And I took it to my editor and she said, yeah, it's a good story. Roloff's a good story, but I don't think I want a book about Roloff and just his story. What is his significance? And the spoiler alert for Edward Roloff is that this theory that he came up with was bunk. It had convinced an awful lot of people that he was so intelligent and had so much potential that he should be kept alive and not executed for all of these terrible crimes. But when my editor said, listen, let's do a different book, which turned out to be American Sherlock, which was the one that was the first one in your book club, was American Sherlock. I said, well, okay, I'm going to start a podcast. And I had done 3 years worth of research. Can you imagine researching a book for 3 years only to find out that I had written 3 chapters of that book? I had already written 3 chapters. And so I said, I've done all this research. I'm not going to let it go to waste. I came from ABC Radio, was one of my many jobs when I lived in New York. I'm a journalist. And I knew how to use a Zoom recorder, and I knew how to interview people and be my own crew. And so I said, okay, well, screw it. I'm just going to start a podcast. And I have all this great research. And I had already met the family, Roloff's family and the victims' families from, 1843. And so Ruloff in general, once he became this podcast, it's this really good story. And then I thought, there's so much more to him. He had such a huge impact that he never expected to have on neurology. He was the avatar for the first subject about the criminal mind. He's the first criminal that anyone thought was worthy of studying because he petrified people in Gilded Age New York and Gilded Age America so much that they said, we have to preserve his brain. We have to study him as a character. And so there's this moment when he's shackled to the floor for about a year, shackled to the floor of a jail, and all of these men come in just to figure out what made him tick. And in the podcast, I kind of gloss, if you don't listen carefully enough, you probably don't even remember that part. But, it is about a half a dozen or more men who come in who have his fate in their hands. And they are each determined, journalists and alienists and neurologists. They're determined to figure out why someone who was so incredibly brilliant and intelligent and well-spoken and this country gentleman, how he could also go on to kill people. So that 1 year period when he is manipulating every single one of those people who came in to get exactly what he wants, to frame his own narrative, that is what I looked at, because it is a pattern that has repeated itself for the past 200 years. 100 years later is the FBI's behavioral science unit, and they're doing the same thing, in the 70s with Ted Bundy and Edmund Kemper. And we continue to do that today. We study people who have psychopathy and who are killers. So the book is very different from the podcast, because while it is Ruloff's story, to an extent, it's a much deeper dive in the details that made him a psychopath, and certainly in the details of how we came up with that diagnosis and how we see these patterns over and over again in people. The guy who was just busted in Sacramento for killing all of these people. I mean, these are all people that these patterns are repeated so often. A killer from the 1800s is so similar to someone from 2 months ago.
So you can see the pattern, and what are the ethical implications with being able to just kind of look across the world and be like, well, this person's at risk and this person has psychopathic tendencies, and there's a little part of me that's like, why can't we go out and find them before they've murdered 4,000 people? But at the same time, I'm like, but you can't stop. You can't like pre-arrest for a crime and be like, you seem like you are a murdery type.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I have a family friend right now who has a daughter who, on Hare's checklist, which is the checklist that psychiatrists use to diagnose someone with ASPD, with psychopathy. It's called Hare's checklist, and there's 20 different. I should give you guys the test.
Ooh,
we're gonna give you, in a minute when I'm done on this. We'll do the Hare checklist and see if this checks it off for anybody, because I just did this for my friend. And
everyone can play along in the chat.
This is perfect.
The Hare should get. I'll put a link in the chat, and you guys can share screen in a second. So there's this checklist that you score on a 0 to 2 scale, and it's the way that
Very
people
small
are
scale.
Well, I know. And, Ruloff, I went through the checklist with 2 different psychiatrists, forensic psychiatrists, and based on all the information I knew from him, he was off the scale. I mean, he was a 2 in every circumstance that's been named. So hold on, we'll do it now. Let me see. I just did this too. Here's checklist. So I would be interested in knowing in the chat if any of you all know somebody, because it's one thing to say, oh, my husband's a psychopath, or I dated a psychopath, but this is a pretty specific checklist. Let me see. There's so many of them. ResearchGate.
Like, where's Victor, Jenny? Bring him.
Victor is not a psychopath, but I will say he does have some sociopathic tendencies, and it makes him very good at business. I mean, he's so good. Like, he doesn't have that level of fear or shame. Like, he can make big decisions where he tells me what those decisions are, and I'm like, I'm going to vomit. We're going to lose everything. And he's like, no, it's fine. It's fine. I'm like, how do you sleep? How do you sleep? It's like, it's fine. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, you're a soci. And I'm trying to explain to him, I'm like, that's not necessarily a bad thing to have some, sociopath, you still love people. You're not crazy. You're just...
So let me share that. Well, I can't share, but I'll send it over to you. So I'll put this in the chat. And it's kind of, can I put it in the chat? Am I able to do anything? Hold on, let me see.
You should be able
Can
to
I type it in the chat?
And then like change, it should say send to, and you can put everyone, and then everyone.
Oh, it says invite. I wonder if I've been, hold on, can I be an attendee?
Well, as
just
a
let me do it.
You want.
Let's see, panelists. Hold on. Oh, here we go. Okay, so it's going to go to everyone. This is, I'm sure there's like a better visual, but you could also share this if you all want. So we'll go through the checklist. I just did this about 4 hours ago with someone.
Were they a psychopath?
This particular, yes, daughter of my friend, I absolutely believe it. But then therein we can have a big discussion of how you convince a parent of that. So let's see. Are y'all going to share, or do you want to just everybody look off their own screens?
Vicki, do you know
if I could share?
I don't know how things work.
Let's see.
My hands are full of sequins. Okay, I'm literally making a nipple hat for my cat. If that's not psychopathic, I'm just saying.
It is. Well, let me go through this is the 20 traits assessed by the PCLR score. So glib and superficial charm. So what I did in the book is every time Ruloff would exhibit one of these traits, I would talk about the trait, talk about how he in particular is exhibiting it, and then I can bring in other people. Glib and superficial charm, think of a Ted Bundy. And that superficial charm is really, a lot of people can see through it, but it's also something you could fall for. In the instance of, the person who I know, it certainly is a superficial charm. A grandiose, exaggerated, high estimation of self. So when Ruloff killed his second two victims, who I'm not going to spoil it, when he killed these second victims, he had threatened to take his own life. That's what he told his biographer. I'm going to do it. I'm going to take my own life. And he said he had the poison to his lips. And then he said, no, I cannot deprive the world of my intelligence. And he legitimately felt like this. That, I think, is a pretty high exaggeration of self.
So the opposite of imposter syndrome.
Right. And I mean, this is, and I don't think it's delusional. I think it is just a legitimate way that these people feel. Need for stimulation. A lot of risk taking is the way that that's been interpreted to me. Pathological lying, cunning and manipulativeness. The big one, really the big one with people with psychopathy, is a lack of remorse or guilt. That under all circumstances they aren't able to feel remorse or guilt. And researchers say it's primarily because they are likely lacking gray matter volume in the areas of your brain that allow you to feel remorse or guilt. And then you've got superficial emotional responsiveness. Bundy was like that, and so is Edmund Kemper. You could kind of fake it, but eventually, they foul their own nests. Because they don't know how to act with emotion, legitimate emotion, something that feels organic. Parasitic lifestyle, I see that all the time. People latching on to someone specifically, for their resources. Poor behavioral controls, sexual promiscuity, early behavior programs, lack of a realistic long-term goal is another big one. Just not being able to see past. Impulsivity, irresponsibility, failure to accept responsibility for your own actions. Not long with marriages. They can't stay married. A lot of juvenile delinquency. And then criminal versatility. And then criminal versatility with Ruloff he was a thief, and he was a killer, and he was an arsonist. So someone who has several different tools at their disposal. And then if you have been revoked of a conditional release, so, you have been given a second chance and then you've done something to screw it up. This is what, is what professionals use to screen to see if people have psychopathy. And Catherine Ramsland, who spent a lot of time interviewing Dennis Rader, BTK, said she thought that Hare should add whining to that list because every serial killer she had ever met with psychopathy was a whiner. They just felt badly for themselves all the time. It was always somebody else's fault. So
this sounds like a lot of Tinder.
Cindy says, let me tell you about my ex-son-in-law. I'd love to hear about your ex-son-in-law sometime. I'm telling you, it's 2% of the male population. That seems like 2%, but if 100 people, now you're down to 2 people, right?
Yeah, 2 murders.
I did that math right. Yeah, I mean, now potentially, murder is a different thing.
That's kind of like the next. So, like, you take this test and then you see to have these inclinations. Is there like a treatment process or like any sort of protocol that you would follow afterwards, or is it?
Jenny asked an interesting question, which is, okay, so you think that your 16-year-old kid is a psychopath? What can you do? They don't diagnose kids under 18, but, and I know you didn't ask that, but this is not like a Minority Report where you can kind of tag them and keep an eye on them. When I spoke to a forensic psychiatrist who's at University of North Texas, he's a renowned researcher in psychopathy. I thought he was going to have empathy. I said, well, if I run into someone who has psychopathy, is this someone I should try to befriend and to help and to show empathy for? Because this must not be pleasant. And he said, this is someone you need to stay away from, and any interaction that you have with them, you need to document, even if it's videotape. And I just thought, no, you're doomed if you have this.
Yeah.
And I think one of the main things is like when you have somebody like that, who some of us would describe as toxic, but it's more serious than that. The forensic psychiatrist I spoke with said that a man with psychopathy will kill you. A woman with psychopathy will ruin you financially, and she'll steal your identity. And sometimes both. So it's scary. It's scary, but there's a reason why the vast majority of the prison population has psychopathy. There's a lot of violent tendencies.
So I scored a 6. Am I? I don't have any long-term goals.
You do it right?
I don't have any long-term goals, and I wouldn't say I have superficial charm, but a lot of times I'm smiling, but inside I'm like, I'm having an anxiety attack, but I'm just going to pretend that everything's okay. So I gave myself points for stuff like that, but now I'm like, I don't know if that's right.
I think that's adapting. That's not superficial charm.
Yeah, I don't know if that's superficial charm.
I have no charm, actually, now that I think about it. It's just...
No, you do.
You're plenty charming.
You do. When somebody is when you can feel that they're not genuine, and that doesn't mean they have psychopathy, and it doesn't mean that every person with psychopathy is going to go out and kill you or take all of your money, but it does mean that the ability is there. Yeah. I've met quite a few people diagnosed with psychopathy, and none of them were particularly nice people, and I didn't trust any of them. It's just difficult. So you asked me, Vicki, about the rehab program. There's no medicine. And I talked to somebody who was the head of a program, which is actually here in San Marcos, Texas, which is a successful program. And I actually know someone who went through a similar program in Missouri who has psychopathy, a woman. And my understanding is that it's the only option you have is behavioral modification. And the problem with behavioral modification is the only way that they can change is if they feel like there's something in it from them. Like, you cannot conform to society unless you do X, Y, and Z, and I won't get my way otherwise. you know, like with my family friend, yeah, I think the only thing that's going to get through to, you know, this older daughter is you're going to go to jail. I mean, you're going to have all your rights taken away. So why don't you do a few simple things? And that's what's going to convince you. And when I interviewed this woman who has psychopathy, I said, how do I know you're even being truthful? And she said, because I know that if I lie to you and you find out that I'm lying to you, you're not going to want to interview me anymore. And I want to be interviewed by you. So she said, it has nothing to do with me being told when I was a kid that it's not good to lie and that our society relies on truthfulness. It is the fact that I will not get what I want. So I'm going to act right for X amount of time. And that's the therapy, convincing them of that.
Wow.
So that's hard. It's a hard ask, I
interesting.
think.
For real.
Especially of a parent, like that's really rough.
I can't even imagine. So why
The Atlantic did a really good, I'll find the article actually. Ask me, Jenny, and I'll put the article in the chat.
Oh yeah. Why do you think it is that we are, and I don't just mean we as in the people who are here, but like we as a society are fascinated with like for me, I can only I don't like the new stuff, makes me very uncomfortable. But if there's an old murder, I am 100%.
Yeah.
I'm like, and I don't want to say that it's a comfort read to me, because that sounds awful, but there's something about it that when I'm reading true crime, like antique old true crime, I'm like, oh, this scratches a certain something in my brain. Why do you think that is? Do you have any idea?
Well, I think for me, I love history. I love time periods. I like reading old cookbooks. I mean, I love old cookbooks. My mom has one from a Stella Standard from, I think, the 1950s. And I bought her, it's way out of print. And I bought her one because I ruined her first copy. And I love reading about those old recipes. And I think that's kind of why I like old crime, is I like being transported back into history.
Have you made any of the recipes? Have you made any of the recipes?
I have, and actually I keep thinking of stuff to tell you guys about. So hold on, let me tell you this before I forget. This is a great article that you all might be interested in. I just put it in. It's called When Your Child is a Psychopath. It is so fascinating. It's from the Atlantic, and it's old. It's 5 or 6 years old, but it's so good. And I think it's with that San Marcos facility. That is the thing that really, this article is what got me really interested in psychopathy. And yes, I did made a couple of things. I made homemade eggnog, which freaked me out. The raw egg part completely wigged me out, but I did it and it was good.
I've heard like homemade eggnog is so good though, that it like really is like life-changing.
It is.
Eggnog.
It is. And I think there's distance. I'm very comfortable with distance. I mean, I just am in the middle of writing a season of Tenfold More Wicked that's set in 1766.
Wow. So, in America?
And and it's I'll tell you a little bit about it. It's in colonial Virginia, and it's to me, it's such an incredible case. There were, many reasons why the American Revolutionary War started. A lot of it was, of course, the King of England just, insisting on taxing the colonists because of the French Indian War, and England was broke. And there were a whole series of things that made the colonists completely mistrust England. And of course, it was a Stamp Act and the Tea Act and everything else you could think of. But two big things happened, and that's what I'm doing, and they involve a murder. One is the very wealthy gentry class in Williamsburg, Virginia. The man who was the treasurer of the colony died unexpectedly, just of natural causes. And they found out later on that he had stolen hundreds of thousands of pounds and essentially bankrupted the colony. And then his father-in-law is in financial ruin because of this, and he ends up killing someone. And the wealthy people try to get him out of the murder try to get him out of being hanged. And it caused such an uproar in what would become America that it was one of the things that was the impetus for the war, because it was just the colonists looking around and going, we are getting screwed from every end, including now a member of the gentry can kill any one of us and not be punished at all. And it's a great story, but my challenge is, how do you make someone from 1766 relatable to my audience, which is mostly women, from 2022? You know, what are those personality things? What is it about their life that we can relate to? And when someone can successfully do that, I think that's what makes people love history. And that's why I love history. I love reading good writers.
I had talked to you a little bit about this, so I have like all these family murders, which is just ridiculous because apparently not everybody has a whole bunch of family murders, but my God, we collect them. But one of the one that I'm the most interested in right now, just because there's such a mystery about it. And to me, that's the most exciting part, is saying like, okay, here's this puzzle. Why this, why that? So this particular, it was a murder that ended up being one of this giant public execution where my step great grandfather and his son were hung publicly in the end, and for murdering this guy. And then my step great uncle got off, and the reason why he got off, it's so good. He got off. Are you gonna come here? Yeah, okay, well, come on then. He got off because they arrested him, and they were like, for sure, you were part of this. You were trying to murder this guy. All y'all were trying. Y'all are all part of it. And he was like, no, I can prove I wasn't there because I was in town talking to my lawyer, just double checking to make sure that I can murder him. And he said I couldn't. And that was literally how he got off. But what's
okay?
But yeah, I mean, it worked. But it's so interesting because when I first found it, it was doing, genealogy, and I found it on the story on Find a Grave. And that was what tipped me off to be like, okay, let's find the newspapers, let's find all this stuff. And this was years ago. And I looked again recently, and it's all been wiped. Everything has been wiped. All the ancestry stuff has been wiped. The Find a Grave, all the story on that, completely wiped. It's 100%. It's those people. But if you looked up, father and son public execution, it doesn't show up. It says like, oh no, there was only one, and it was this guy, and no, and I'm going through. I just got this book from the 1800s, which is impossible to read, but so good. And it's just
what is it?
It is The History of Monadnock County, Illinois. And so it's just like, it's a reprint of an 1800s book, and it's so hard to read because it's teeny tiny. And I thought, well, I'll just go through and just find the pieces that I'm looking for. But every single page is, I cannot stop reading it. Like they're talking about when there's like literally there's 8 people who lived in this entire county. And it's the tight, yeah. And so they're like, so they built a prison, and the prison, they called it the Old Caboose. And this building was considered a very strong one, but we were informed by one who knows that John Stewart was incarcerated in it for the assault of someone. Not liking his quarters, he kicked a log out and soon was a free man. He was evidently good on the kick. Good on the kick.
That was evidently good on the kick.
Good. He was good on the, I mean, it is the postmaster who would, when the mail would come out, it was just one guy. They were like, okay, you're the postmaster, I guess. And so when he'd put it in his hat, and he just put it, and if he happened to see you, he'd be like, oh, you got mail.
So he was trying to deliver it, he just carried it in hopes that he ran it
in his hat. Only in his hat.
He's not even like having a route. He's just like, I'll probably run into him the next day or two. I'll hold it.
There's like, I mean, for real, there's like 18 people in the entire town. And they have a prison and a tavern immediately. And the tavern is just like this shed. And the tavern is run by this Baptist preacher, which I guess kind of makes sense. But the author who wrote this in the 1800s says, carried on the business after the manner of the old man and his wife, who, owning a barrel of cider between them and only a sixpence to spend, tapped the barrel at both ends and sold to each other.
What?
What does that mean?
I think it means that they were like, oh, I'm gonna here's a sixpence, sell me some cider. And she was like, oh, that's good. Okay, well, now sell me from your side. Here's my sixpence. Because there's only 18 people there. How could they possibly make any money?
It's like an innuendo or something. I was like, is that dirty?
It is fascinating, and all of the wording, like when they arrive and there's thousands of people, and they bring out the militia because there's all these people who are there to see the hanging, and they're so excited about seeing my relatives killed, and I love it. I don't blame them. There wasn't a lot going on back then, I guess. But the writing of it is like the men wore their shrouds and sat upon their coffins and joined in the singing as the crowd picked up the gospel, and as the handle was pulled, their souls were launched into eternity. And like, just the wording is so
I want you to start writing your books like that, Jenny.
Yes, that's what I need to start writing. This is my new book, will be The History of Medina County, Illinois, Part 2.
I love it. I love 19th century writing. I think it's beautiful. I do. It makes me feel stupid, frankly.
Me too. I had to look stuff up.
People weren't, and most of the people writing weren't like, not all of them were the smartest of the people.
No,
they were just walking around talking like this. So there were people way smarter, talking way better, and not writing it down. And then we're just down here saying YOLO. Like
YOLO. I just learned that. I think a couple of weeks ago, YOLO.
YOLO anymore. I think I'm just old.
Oh, great. Okay, I'm already out of date. Excellent.
YOLO's out.
Typical.
I was like, I didn't find out about it until it already wasn't cool anymore, and the TikTok says it's not cool. I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you, the public executions are something else. Every time I get asked, probably once a week. So you must really be thrilled with this resurgence of true crime. Now everybody talks about true crime. Everybody loves true crime, and that's just. As a society, we have always loved true crime. There are literally thousands of people who would go to public executions. When Ruloff was executed, there was a man who escaped from prison 2 days before. He was on the run, and he actually stopped in Binghamton to watch this guy get executed.
He's like, I
gotta have a preview. I need to just check this out and just see. Does he poop himself? I've heard they poop themselves. I don't know.
Graphic,
but that
mustache and was like, I'm just here for the show, everybody.
People made fried chicken and sat there and watched, and their kids were there and sat there and watched all kinds of executions. And I just
so long that you would need a whole bucket of chicken, or were there several at once?
They may depending on where it is, they would make a production out of it, because this was a really big deal. I mean, this was Crime and Punishment, an eye for an eye. It was a big deal. But with Ruloff's, they really dragged it out, is probably the incorrect phrase to use, but they did drag it out. They really it was like a procession for him, and so unbelievably embarrassing. And I was just doing an episode with Paul Holes, Very Bones, our podcast, and I was showing him during our episode a photograph of the crime scene from a girl who was murdered in 1927, I think, in Oakland. And I showed him the crime scene in the photo. This is from 1927. And in the photo is the back of the house, and you see the police car and just a throng of people, including like 4 kids. walking around this crime scene. I mean, just with a 15-year-old dead right there, laying on the ground, just kids walking everywhere, bucket of chicken. I mean, I mean, this is the way things have gone. We just now have 1,000, more than 1,000 podcasts that you can listen to about true crime. It's the media that's exploded. It's not our interest that's exploded. You know, I think Penny Dreadfuls were incredibly popular. You know, it's from the very beginning.
Like, people are still investigating a crime scene with a bucket of chicken. They're just doing it at home now. It's like there's just podcasts and YouTube channels for it.
Exactly.
I've never watched any of you all watch the YouTube. I've never watched a YouTube show, true crime show.
I have watched people like the Bailey Sarian, which is the makeup and murder ones, where she does like a true crime story while she does her makeup. The ones I really started enjoying is Kendall Ray is a YouTuber who she's done a fair amount of like modern murders, but what I find really interesting is she works a lot with the families, which I can imagine is kind of hard, but a lot of what she tries to do is find cases that have been dropped, that have dropped off the radar, did not get a lot of interest, a lot of indigenous cases, and work with families to sort of put them back in front of an audience. I think she's used her platform in a really careful and like thoughtful way, as opposed to just recapping a murder for shock value of things. I'm like, so yeah, really enjoyed. Yeah.
Well, we were talking about this before the event started, where this is the intersection that true crime has created can be pretty explosive. You have very, very intelligent women who are the primary consumers of true crime, who consider themselves advocates. They consider themselves, many of them are survivors. Many of the people who email me are survivors from killers or from sexual assault, abuse, all of that, who consider themselves, to be people who are fighting against families being re-traumatized. And then you combine that with our space, which is full of an awful lot of people who have no clue what they're doing. They're not reporters. They're just kind of talking. And, anybody can have a podcast now. And
I think Kate froze.
Oh, I think she did.
Wow. Kate.
She probably paused it to go get s'mores.
I was like, she paused it to go get the s'mores that the kid was making.
That's interesting because there are some I think she was murdered. No.
That's why you can't talk about the true crime space anymore.
That's right. It's interesting because there are some, and I wouldn't name names because I really hate it when people say like, that, oh, there's a book that I don't like and it happens to be mine. I'm like, you don't have to use my name. It's okay to not like me. But there are some podcasts.
I'm going to use your name every time I say I don't like your book.
Right. Oh my God, that bitch again.
I like her again.
But there are some where I'm just like, oh, this seems so irresponsible. The way that you're reporting this, the way that you're saying it, the way that like it's so uncomfortable. And part of me is like, am I uncomfortable because I have a journalism degree and I was taught like the certain way that you're supposed to do things, but at the same time they didn't have podcasts when I was doing this stuff. So I don't know if there are certain ethical things that are, but it is interesting how I'll be really into a podcast and then they'll do something and I'm like, oh, don't make me not like you anymore. Because I don't know.
I mean, there's been, although not dropping, there's been more than one podcast that like I used to really enjoy, and then like you start to reevaluate the use of their platform or some things that they've said, and you're like, I can't really enjoy this anymore.
Isn't that the worst?
Yeah.
Haley was talking about, and this is totally right. They were talking about how they have comfort YouTubers, and I was like, I don't understand that. And they were like, oh no, like like the Try Guys, or like I can't remember the
Try Guys really did us dirty.
They absolutely did. And Haley was like,
just one. The other ones,
all the other ones are totally fine, but they came home and they were like, Ned ruined my comfort YouTube. Now all I have is, I can't remember the name of the other guy. It starts with an M. Hell, he plays video games. Sometimes he doesn't poop. He goes to the
Sometimes
hospital.
he has to poop.
No, sometimes he doesn't. He has like problems with his constipation.
Oh,
And
no.
so he'll be in the hospital and he'll be like, Mr. Beast. No, it's not Mr. Beast. It's like a cute guy. And I think he just started an OnlyFans, but he gives all the money to charity. And what is
Someone
his
did say
name?
Mr. Beast. Maybe it is.
I mean, maybe he was really famous for doing the oh my God, what is it called? The Five Nights at Freddy's when it first came out, and he's just adorable. There you are.
I have no idea. It just went dead like that. That was crazy. It wasn't my computer. It was something else.
Like, did you pulled a Maureen Johnson? And
I know.
Like,
I was afraid. I'm on my phone. I was afraid y'all got worried. I'm sorry.
I was like, you can log back in. You're allowed back.
Yeah. We immediately were like, yeah, she's probably dead. She's probably dead.
I probably could try again, but this is just as easy. I know that we don't have all that much time left. I'm sorry, I bailed. Did you guys have anything interesting to say when I was gone? Or did you just work on pasties?
Oh, then things like devolved into YouTubers. Like,
Yeah, about
okay.
Problematic versus unproblematic people, and how you have your comfort listens, and then somebody, so like for my kid, it was the Try Guys. They, Ned and all of that. And
was he upset about what happened with those guys?
Oh my gosh, they were very, very like unhappy. And
there's so many years of content that, like, I've watched the Try Guys for a long time too, and there's years of content that I would go back and watch videos and be like, oh, I can put this on as background noise, and this is just a wholesome 20 minutes of YouTube to have playing while I watch dinner. And now you're just like, oh, he's tainted all those years of work for all those guys. It's really sad. Like,
yeah.
I told Haley, I was like, you need to find a new person. And all of my comfort they're all Instagram, because I'm real fast. But like,
have you gotten into the crystal scooping people on TikTok?
Crystal scooping.
You know what? Hang on a second.
You know what I'm talking about?
I'm gonna try to get through the other way while y'all are talking too. Yeah. So I might, if I drop out, I might come right back if I can get in.
Go away. I was like, Jenny disappeared. She's gonna pop back up with one of those crystal scoop buckets.
There's a bucket?
So it's like this.
What kind of?
And she's got
what kind of crystals?
And she's shaking this bucket of crystals, right, Elizabeth? Am I? Jenny, did you buy the crystal bucket?
Okay. The one I've seen, it's like a huge thing and it spins and she just does a giant scoop and it's like, you get a heart, you get a tower, look at all these gemstones, and she just like sends it to you.
And her energy is wild.
She's so excited. There's so much energy. And I'm like, oh, are you okay?
But she's just on TikTok constantly shaking this bucket of crystals.
Vicky, I'm gonna bail out of this. Let me back in though, okay?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Crystals, okay, so like if you were like a quartz or a jasper or like an agate, like a thing like that, like she just has them in what appears to be like some sort of laundry basket salad spinner hybrid, and then just kind of shakes them around with water, and then it's like she does these lives and she scoops out a crystal and yells about how good this crystal is, and then someone buys it.
Well, is she pulling them from, like, did she get the sand out? Or did she like tuck them in?
I think she just put some crystals in a bucket with water. Maybe the water's holy. I'm
gonna start doing that. I'm gonna be like, oh, look at this crystal. Look at oh.
How much do they go for?
Like, how much do they sell for, Elizabeth? They've been like, I mean, they're pretty big things that she's scooping out. So they're probably between like 30 and like, 30 some odd dollars. Yeah, someone's like, this is a TikTok thing. But next time I see Jenny go live at like 1 a.m. for no reason, turn it on, it's just gonna be you in the dark holding up different rocks.
Okay, so here's what happened. There is this thing called Facebook auctions, which they're about to make illegal. So it makes me kind of sad, but you can go on the page and it'll just basically be random people going like, I guess I'm gonna sell this. and you just write in the comments like, oh, okay, I'll buy that, whatever.
That's why I got this vest. That's why I got this vest on Instagram.
Wait, isn't it? It's so fun. It is so, I love it.
I follow a lot of resellers that do this. I love them. They're like friends.
Okay.
So this was, I have bought so much ridiculous stuff. And sometimes you'll pull up somebody and they don't have any audience. And so it's like 2 people and you're just like, oh no, oh my God, this one guy, he was like, anybody. And then when he closed it down, he was like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to go rethink some things. And I was like, oh, I'll buy something. I'm sorry. Well, okay, what else do you have? I don't need any of that. But that, so like all of this is filled with, we have like 6 of these.
Did you buy them?
Because Victor was on, it was a Facebook auction and the guy and he was just like, does nobody want these? And Victor was like, okay.
Well, was he being cool about it? Was he giving a story? Was he telling me the properties of these crystals? Like, I feel like, I mean, you got to have a gimmick. Like,
he had no clue. He had no clue.
I haven't seen, which I would like to see, is like a haunted doll auction. I would love to see like somebody like just like their auction starts at like
a haunted doll,
and then it's just a bunch of people going like, this is little Susie. I've had her for about a year. I'd hate having her in my home. Please buy her. She turns all the radios on at 2:00 every night.
I could both have that sale with my haunted dolls and buy more
with those people. I feel like,
I've been staring at those dolls over your shoulder the whole time.
Staring back at you, I assure you.
Trying to figure out what's going on.
They are ridiculous. Actually, my favorite dolls are, hang on, let me get one of my favorite ones you can't really see because I can't move the thing, but my favorite ones are these Japanese dolls that just look really like people. Like she has a little
Where's the spooky cat one?
knife.
Oh.
Here, look up.
Kate looks concerned.
I mean, it makes me so ridiculously they have these big, beautiful gowns, and they just look like they want to just eat you. And you can take off like their wigs, and you can take off all their stuff. Like you can take off like their head.
Oh.
And then see the eyeballs, how they're filled in with like gunk. So I can take out the eyeballs and put in, like I have one that has cataracts.
Where's the one with this scary cat smile that was like the clearance one?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we can skip that. We're cool. We can skip that. It's okay.
Okay.
No, I think everybody probably wants to see. Now everybody wants to see the scary cat one.
Okay.
Wasn't this like a drunken FaceTime when Victor was in Japan?
That is exactly what it was. I couldn't see because it was all fidgety and weird, and I thought it was like a cute little kitty. And then he came home with it, and it's this kitty. And
she's kind of cute now that you put a little dress on her.
Like its head comes apart. It is much cuter, yeah. Yeah, and his
naked.
Like, and his tail.
Terrifying.
It's ridiculous, but yeah.
And I'm not sure a cute dress actually helps that much.
It was worse before. It was worse. Yeah. Sweet little
surprise. Like you thought she had a cute little kitty face.
It's ridiculous.
Do you sell any of this stuff ever, or you just accumulate it?
I haven't. I always think that I will. I always buy. My house is super hoardery. And I always think I need to like do a Facebook auction or something like that, because I have a ton of amazing stuff like up in closets, and because I love antiques and thrifting, and just find the creepiest, weirdest stuff, and then people send me weird stuff, and it just makes me so happy. And I just don't ever do it because I'm super lazy.
You're not lazy.
I feel like you would do it. I feel like you would do like the auction part, and then you would sit there with all of the stuff and the addresses and people's money and go, oh, now I have to ship this stuff to people.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely. I could do the first part. And I did tell Haley, I was like, listen, we could do this together, and you could be in charge of the shipping and all of that, and you can have half of the profits and use it toward college. And this is, and Haley was like, that sounds exhausting. And I was like, you're my child. You are my child.
I want to do that. They don't want any part in this.
Yeah, they're like, oh, with your creepy ass dolls and all the haunted stuff in your hat. No, thank you, Mom.
Like, I'll go find a part-time job. Leave me alone.
Oh yeah, it absolutely would be too. Okay, so I'm almost done. Oh, okay, so I'm done with this part.
Yeah,
So it's all like it's ready.
perfect.
Oh, and I've got a cat back here too.
You have a
Okay,
king?
here's okay.
Oh my God.
What a king. Cool.
Look at how cute you look. It needs the this thing though.
It's like he graduated.
Looks like a Shriner.
Right there.
Oh, yes, baby, look. Look at your brother. It's your brother. Look, I made him a hat.
Is this his normal personality just in general, or is he irritating?
Yeah, I think all of that was his normal personality. He was not into it. He was not into it. I was showing them your crystals. They were very impressed.
Cindy says he yells help.
Right. He said, no help. Sorry.
Does he?
All right. Oh, we've gone 2 minutes over. I'm sorry, everybody.
Out of here.
Oh my gosh. This was so much fun.
Fine.
It's fun.
I loved this. This was fantastic. I will share pictures online when I do finally get and Hunter will wear one. Ferris is not into it, but Hunter, I think he's gonna be into it. But yeah, like I don't know how to attach that part, but
See, the thing is, you have to get like a clip, like, you know, that would be like a
Nice.
little, like, necklace clasp.
oh
is
yeah.
Get to stick it on the end, and then you can, like, that's how they're interchangeable. Like, they have the little loop at the end. Permanently
Oh,
attach it by like cutting it and looping it through and then gluing it or sewing it back together. But
okay.
for mine, all of mine have clippies so that I can change the colors.
Oh my God, that's so smart.
For context,
You know that
for less.
you know that I have this is my third book, and I have done many book events over the past few years, and I don't think nipple pasties have ever come up once at any of the book events. So this is
It should have come up
very unique. This is you need to market this experience directly to authors, I think.
Right?
You will get Eric Larson will be here, I'm sure.
Oh
yeah.
About nipple tassels with Eric Larson.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, I will come for that. Yes.
I would totally do that. Grady Hendrix would 100% come.
Oh, we
Christopher
can book Grady Hendrix just to make nipple pasties any day of the week. I think he'd do it just for fun.
I think so too. Look, I glued it accidentally, and that won't come off. And I also have
authors, yeah.
Did you do as many pasty-centric events as before you started working with me, Jenny?
Yeah, I'm sure she did.
This is my first.
Well, you know what? You really pulled it off flawlessly. I mean, this was excellent. This is the prototype for moving forward, what you should be doing with
for the people that were in the chat that were here for like the Pegasus event where we sent out the Pegasus and put those together. The next one, we're going to send out a bunch of pasties.
That's exactly right.
Nice.
Yes. Yes. Actually, you know what? I think on the next one, I think we're going to do something with miniatures or so. I don't know. Keep checking your emails. We're gonna figure something out. Something fun. Something exciting. Maybe more of these.
Very good.
Who knows? I might be wearing these to the bookshop tomorrow. This will be fine. Oh, it really looks better. Oh, I think our nipple. I don't know where my nipples.
You know what you can
They're
do?
right in there.
People will pick them up and then kind of fold them in and to make them look higher.
Oh my God, that's so smart. It's like I had a lift and I didn't even have one.
They look like they're facing up.
You know, I was going to show my kids a video of this, and now I'm thinking
even more. I feel like
I'm thinking we're going to skip this one. They'll come to the Texas Book Festival instead.
Yeah, we just skip the last like 6 minutes. They're fine.
I love it. I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for being here, and thank
you, Kate, for hanging out again.
Thanks. Yeah, this was so much fun. Thank you. I appreciate it. I will have Diet Coke and rum next time.
Exactly.
The tea is kind of bringing me down a little.
The rum makes
I wasn't prepared. I need rum for more pasty talk for sure. Thank you everybody for coming and for sticking around.
It was so much fun. It was awesome. And thank you for everyone who who showed up. And Vicki, you got their addresses or their.
I have the things.
Good night, Chelsea.
Contact and ways of doing
Perfect.
it.
Awesome. All right. Well, then we will see you again soon. Irish goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.